All right, the meeting is yours.
All right, let's call this the Public Works Facilities Subcommittee to order at 1:30 on the 28th, and we'll do a quick. I'm Chair Councilmember Wheeler. I'm standing in for the chair that's normally here, Gus Walter. He couldn't make it today, so let's just do a quick little roll call. And who do we have here? Just introduce yourself.
I'll start out. City Manager David Keller. Bobby Spagnola, Engineering Technician.
Derek Montani, Director of Public Works.
Vanessa.
Oh, Vanessa Apodaca, City Engineer.
Hector Galvan, Park Superintendent.
Kevin Thompson, Assistant City Manager, Community Development Director.
That's everybody.
Word.
Do we have anybody?
No attendees.
No attendees. All right, well then we'll move past the past B, public comments. I don't know if we can use that right now and move into any communications. Do we have any written communications for this meeting at all?
Chair Wheeler, no communications other than what's in the packet.
All righty, and then we'll move down to the last meeting was December 7th, 2022. Item D, approval of minutes.
Happy to move approval.
Is that a second?
Second.
Okay. Take that to a vote. I agree.
All in favor?
They can be approved as submitted.
Everyone disagrees, I guess it'll be easier, right? Approved. There you go, Mike. Did you catch that?
Yep, approved as submitted. Thank you.
All right, we'll move into E, new business, and item 1, discussion plan for updating the traffic parking bicycle lane striping at the intersection South Cloverdale Boulevard and Citrus Fair Drive, and elimination of pass-through lane on the southbound lane of South Cloverdale Boulevard.
All right, thank you, Chair. This item was referred to Council Subcommittee Public Works and Facilities by the council. It was requested by Mayor Lands. I'm going to ask our city clerk to do a share screen Google Maps. We do just noted we have some attendees here. So what we are showing on our screen is a aerial view of the intersection of Citrus Fair Drive and South Cloverdale Boulevard. The request in particular was focused on the north side of the intersection and the southbound lane. There's currently a pass-through lane. And we're going to do a kind of street level view here. As you can see, there's a pass-through lane in the southbound lane on the north side of the intersection. The request was to evaluate elimination of that pass-through lane and look at opportunities for possibly the redesign of that intersection to reflect the elimination of the pass-through lane and the possible addition of parking, bicycle lane striping, and of course I would recommend whether there's any pedestrian improvements that would be necessary. Primarily wanted to bring it to subcommittee, just one since this is public works. It is ultimately a public works matter. What this would do would be to I think Councilmember Bagby referred to it as kind of a road diet. It reduced what we see as a pretty large or significantly wide amount of pavement here. And what happens with that pass-through lane is a car in that lane can really take two actions. One is turn right onto Citrus Fair Drive or proceed southerly, where they have to merge into now what becomes a single travel lane. And as we move forward, you can see that the bike lane starts to pull away from the curb and that enables and provides for parking along the boulevard. The striping, it also reflects that this is kind of a newer concept, maybe it's not a new concept, but it's new for Cloverdale, where we've actually striped the bike lane with a buffer between the travel lane and the bike lane. So that kind of reflects the 2.5 feet, I think, which is, now state law for keeping your vehicle away from a bicycle. But getting back to the project at hand, the proposal, so it is, at this point, we need to obtain a proposal from a qualified traffic consulting firm to come up with a plan that really focuses on how do we restrike that area, whether what kind of striping would be for parking could be accommodated, because you don't want to necessarily have cars backing out into a travel lane as they approach a signal. So those are all things we have to kind of take into account. It's just appropriate traffic safety. So we don't know yet what that would look like, but this is just an opportunity for before we get a proposal. Of course, we'll bring the proposal back to get any preliminary comments on this item, so that we can incorporate that into a possible scope of work with a design professional would come up with a plan for the restriping of that particular section of Citrus Fair Drive. Again, goal would be eliminate that pass through and see what opportunities there are for adding a bicycle lane or adding a stripe for bicycle lane, and how would parking be accommodated, whether it needs to stay as it is now, or whether there can be some angled parking there or not, or some spacing. So that's really it, Chair. It's just a discussion on that. Again, we don't have a proposal yet. We will seek to get a proposal from a couple of different firms and bring that back for further conversation, because this wasn't a budgeted item. So we'll have to see if we have any funds available to cover the cost once we have a proposal, or do a budget amendment. So with that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
Well, and on that, I have a comment on that too, because I know just me, I've seen personally, and I'm sure everybody else has seen this, when you're leaving there and there's a line of cars behind you, or something's going on in town, that turns into a drag strip right there. And the big concern is a lot of times between that intersection at Citrus Fair Drive and then Healdsburg Avenue, when there's kids down there and they have the crossing guard and everything out, you're still ramped up 40+ miles an hour. And I know there's been issues down there with the crossing guard and all of that. So you're either laying on the brakes right there. So, I think that's in my opinion, it would do that section also, if we're going to, look at doing an evaluation on it, is the one further down in town, down there on Brookside and all of that, the same thing, where Brookside and you kind of have the same setup there. It's not as bad as this one at Citrus Fair, but it's kind of set up, and it turns into just like a drag strip.
Right.
People are always trying to get around somebody, and they're doing 50, 60 miles an hour right there. Guilty, you know what I mean? I know they do it, because I've tried to get around a truck or something right there too, and I realized, holy smokes, they just blew through an intersection that has a crossing guard.
Right.
So that's just what I'm saying. I like it. I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, one other point of consideration is the corner of Times Square. So it'd be the south west corner of this intersection is planned for a future medical facility by Alexander Valley Healthcare. So they're also going to have a turn in and for patient drop off zone. And so I think what we'll want to do is make sure that any redesign for striping kind of reflects the traffic pattern that would be planned for the wellness center as well. So it really makes sense to kind of do this work now, because ultimately with that turn in, there's going to be cars that are going to want to jog right to make that turn in. So if it's being as it is now, it's a passing lane, it's kind of contrary to it being a potential turn in lane for for the wellness center. So if we can pick up some parking, I think that would be ideal. Not sure if we'll be able to accommodate that or not, or whether that can be accommodated. But I think I understand there's support from the Public Works Subcommittee to move forward, get a proposal, bring it back. That's in your report, Chair.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to number 2, the Allen Avenue asphalt repair. And it also has, we have an attachment in there also on that one that describes a little more. And then Mike, is there any way you can bring that up on the split screen net so we can have it up there?
So a little background why we're getting this item up, and then I'll turn this over to our Public Works Director. We had a fairly significant water leak on Allen Avenue. There's some fairly aged, water distribution infrastructure in the Tarman area where the leak occurred, and it's kind of I'm not sure if there's a technical name where it's kind of like a cul-de-sac, but it really serves as it's kind of a 90-degree turn with Allen Avenue. And again, the pavement was already, to use a technical term from our city engineer, alligatored. But the water leak didn't do any favors to the existing pavement. So I'll turn it over to our Public Works Director on a planned approach on how we want to address it.
Yeah, so the main drive behind this was that main water leak. And as you can see in the existing asphalt pictures, we have the alligator asphalt, but you can see the cold patch area. That kind of, this whole area was the main water leak area, which was very significant. And you can see the unevenness of the road in there. And that whole cul-de-sac is, as noted with the aerial view, we kind of really need to redo that whole area because of how bad the asphalt is in that corner. And our biggest worry is, since it is in a corner, you get garbage trucks and vehicles and stuff coming around that corner on that turn, continuously hitting that patch, and it's just going to be a never-ending project where we're continuing to fix it, patch it, fix it, patch it. We like the hardscape on top of that, on top of this area to mitigate any more sinking or main breaking or anything like that. So we're at the initial stage. We're just seeking council to see if we want to go get bids for this job.
Yeah, and just a little background on the bid process. We can do the informal, so it's informal and formal. This qualifies under the state code as a public works project. So we have to bid it, and the question is whether we bid it formally or informally on projects that are estimated to cost less than $200,000. We can bid informally. And most recently, we've done a couple of informal bids for similar type of repair work led up by our city engineer, both on Vista V Drive. We did the E corner section, which had similar kind of alligator pavement. We also had a strip of asphalt that was replaced on East 2nd Street that was damaged due to tree roots, replaced. Both successfully used the informal bid process. So we think the informal bid process makes sense. Ensure we comply with the bidding requirements. But if you agree, our Public Works Director will submit kind of a technical request to contractors to give us bids, and depending on the cost, if they're under 25 within my authority, we'll cover it within existing budget. If it's greater than that, we'll have to bring it to council for authorization. I think it can be done within existing budget. We're working on doing our budget tracking worksheet for road work now. And so this would enable us to move forward, get that informal bid and then take next steps to get that repair work done. I mean, one thing, I guess, if we want to make it a larger project, we could go in and start doing water line replacements, but I know that's a much more significant effort.
Yes.
Um,
I think the Public Works Department is entertaining the idea of adding a second shutoff valve at that hydrant, but that work would be done prior to the asphalt repaving.
By city staff.
Yes.
Some work with that, okay, yeah, that's. I mean, these are things, all this infrastructure we've already seen, rarely expect, I mean, we got a chance to fix something, let's fix it, you know?
we'll proceed,
Okay.
post haste with requesting informal bids, and then we'll go from there.
All right, let's move on to the new business. We also have another attachment here. We're looking at the item 3 under new business is the traffic signal cabinet replacement for Street and Cloverdale Boulevard. Also an attachment to that under E1. So.
All right, little background, we have as most of us know, the boulevard was historically functioned as Highway 101 before Highway 101 was constructed. And there's still considerable infrastructure that remains from that time frame when it was our main thoroughfare, which includes this traffic signal cabinet that's on the northeast corner of the intersection of First and North Cloverdale Boulevard. And I'll turn over to our public works director to tell you a little bit about that cabinet and some of the issues that.
Yeah, this particular cabinet's a very well aged cabinet.
Is that
And
the one by the insurance?
yes, exactly, and it's getting to where it's continually needing repair. And I think we're adding newer updated components to an older rack, and it always isn't convenient, and sometimes is not. Takes more man hours to get these components to work with older components. And it's getting harder and harder to get these parts and pieces. So this proposal is for a new cabinet, updated. It has the potential for external backup, so you can get a small generator, plug it in, run it, so it has full functioning traffic lights in a power outage, which is always a good thing. Installation and everything, so it's soup to nuts. They'll and then we'll work with the local PD for the possible 1 hour shutdown time. That's what we're seeking approval from council for that installation of that new cabinet.
Yeah, this will have to go to exceeds my authority.
Yeah.
Go to council, but it was kind of first batch springing here for just feedback and input. I think from a budgetary perspective, we've got to. I think this is a good question. I know Vanessa, part of the conversation around our budget of 200,000 and whether this could qualify for Measure M funds since it's related to traffic signal operations, and then where we expect to land this year budgetarily, because with the informal bid work that's done for Allen, once we've done that analysis, see if we can fit into this budget. If not, we'll have to do a budget adjustment. So ideally, we could, with the work that's already been performed, the anticipated cost of Allen, if we can squeeze this into the budget, that's ideal, and would alleviate the need to do a budget adjustment. But otherwise, the primary source of funds for a project like this would most likely be general fund or streets. I mean, it would put money in the street budget, but it really gets backfilled by general fund. So that's kind of a key issue here is whether we can fund it with the existing budget, and then getting council authority to execute this work.
I'm on this, and like I said, just on the last item too, is some of the things that we've seen. I know that's an ongoing problem. And in my mind, these things are continually broke. They have to be addressed at some time, or they get more and more expensive. So at this point, I'm 100% on board bringing that to council also. And getting their take on it, but anything that's infrastructure wise, safety wise, absolutely.
Okay, we'll do a current available funds budget.
Okay.
Check for the major M and for the general fund to see, make sure that we can use major M on that, and then we'll put it in the agenda.
Thank you, sir. All right. Any other comments on those or, okay? All right, we can move to the item F's, our standing items in F, and work our way down the list here. We've got an update on the downtown waste receptacles and street furnishings.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, staff had brought this forward for initial conversation by the Public Works Facilities Subcommittee at the last meeting held on December 7th. And City Clerk Maloney, could you do a screen share with that attachment? It's you'll see it. It was a new business attachment. It was item 5.1, decorative trash receptacles replacement cost analysis. So at the time, we did an analysis of replacing all the receptacles throughout the city, which at the time we had identified a total of 41 receptacles, 25 in downtown, 4 on First Street, 9 in the plaza, and 3 at the bus stop. There was really 2 models that were identified. This was the second model, but this was really what was identified as the most appropriate receptacle. Prior to this coming forward, that we received requests from a downtown business owner to replace receptacles that were more resistant to crows. And so we did some research on these. These are made by Dumore. They're very sturdy. They're also they have dual containers for both trash and recycling. So you use kind of roughly the same amount of space, a little bit more than our current containers, but you provide for both obviously recycling and trash. The trash component has the greater capacity than the ones we have currently. Yeah. And we were thinking that if we went to a larger capacity, we currently are servicing twice a week, we might be able to get away with serving them once a week. We'd have to do a little pilot to evaluate that, whether or not. But with the reflection that the hope that some of the materials that are currently being placed in trash could be put into recycling. So the thinking was larger trash, recycling, some of that material that usually goes in the trash could be diverted, and then the amount of capacity of the trash is greater, so it may be able to be serviced less. Well, we don't know that, but that's the theory. But going back, we at the Public Works Subcommittee at the time recommended that we bring this forward for council consideration with a phased plan, rather than, it's pretty expensive to go out and wholesale purchase, 41 cans at $2,000 a pop, freight, tax, and so forth. But really start with doing some of the key locations within the downtown corridor. Being mindful that the existing containers could then be redeployed to our parks, so we wouldn't want to lose what we have, just redeploy those along with I know this was your point, Chair. We have a number of blue recycling containers that we could those are more amenable to parks, because then we're not using up street space, sidewalk space, and we could have these green cans with the blue cans placed strategically at our parks, which we don't currently have recycling facilities at, right? Concurrently, we have seen an interest and additional street furnishings. Again, real kind of interest here, more immediate interest was replacing the benches on the plaza. Most of those have wood members, structural members that are getting old, they're decaying, and really what they need to be done is kind of a significant amount of maintenance on each of them. Now, I think they're still
The one
good.
thing I was thinking about those, and that's why it was kind of a hot item, because I know those benches are, I've seen, the people that are on the benches, and then 30 minutes later, an hour later, we've got Friday Night Live, and you've got a gentleman with his kids, and he's sitting there eating a hamburger or a corn dog, and I know what went on that bench.
Right.
So the wood benches, in my mind, are just not there. That shouldn't be something where, because we're gonna continue to have that problem of maybe some of the unhoused sitting on there and all that.
Right.
We're gonna continue to have it, but at least they're cleanable on the newer benches. And then the other thing I looked up, and I was looking up of like some urban beautification type stuff that's running rampant around the country, and they're trying to match the benches and match all of the fixtures.
Right.
So whether it be the garbage cans or the benches throughout town, and I think that's just a good plan right there, is like you said, phase it. But I mean, if we could get that, the plaza's looking great right now. We've got the new bathroom, and then we've got the old benches. So that's one thing I was gonna
Right,
kind of
right.
key in on right there.
And we've been discussing, which there's real interest in, is some cities call it a memorial bench program, but
Right.
it doesn't have to be for memorial purposes only, but
Like the fire code copies.
kind of a
That
bench
is a-
dedication program. Even our missing council member today, or actually expressed interest in a memorial bench that's plaque ready. Where?
Do they sponsor them?
Yeah.
If that happens, say,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we've done a few already. We've done some memorial plaque benches at
Vintage Meadows.
Vintage Meadows, and then we've done some bench dedication at Porterville Creek. And in those cases, they either those that are buying the memorial benches or the others have basically paid the full cost of the bench. And what we've agreed to do is to do the work to not only install them, but put them together, right?
So yeah.
And so, we think it makes sense to kind of do a combo project where we're replacing benches, and some of the garbage facilities are solid waste recycling receptacles, kind of concurrent, and do it in a phased plan and a phased approach, but bring that forward with a program so that, for instance, if Rotary's mentioned they might be willing to do some benches as part of their peace flag proposal. We could identify the program so that people really understand what it is and can budget or determine what they can afford. And we could even go so far as a kind of a second step is identifying. We've been approached kind of randomly from different families at times where they want to put a bench here or there, kind of come up with some locations where future benches could be located versus ones that are just replacement of existing. So some thoughts we just want, that's an update, but we need to bring this to council with a phase plan and a budget on how we want to pay for this. So Hector, I don't know if you want to add something to this.
Yeah, you pretty much covered it all. That was good. So yeah, I gave, just give you a copy of what some of the benches look like. That one right there is pretty popular, not that one, I think the one with the backrest.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty popular. That was actually the bench that was donated to Vintage Meadows. There's 3 of them that were donated by the public.
Those are the metal ones, right?
Yes.
Spraying down in there.
They weigh,
Okay.
that one right there weighs about 400 pounds. So it takes, we actually utilize that crane from the streets department to pick them up, and that worked out perfect. And they're unbreakable. They're those, they give us, I think they gave us a warranty for 100 years. But and there, you can see that I highlighted the price for you there. They're about $1,700, but with delivery and all that, they're roughly about $2,000 each. There's a bunch of different colors that we can choose from. And I think if we just put it out to the community on our weekly newsletter and on some of these social media platforms, we can really get some of these local clubs to get interested in donating some of these benches. I mean, that Vintage Meadows, that's, $70,000 right there.
Well, that was kind of the uniform. That was kind of my thing. It's like, we've got the blue one out here for the bus stop, kind of keep everything. I mean, it just makes the whole town look better, And that's kind of the direction I was heading with. It's like, hey, let's decide on one and
Yeah.
definitely phase it because 123 grand is a lot of money.
Right.
Which is, Yeah. Garbage cans, not even that. So,
So there's four benches in there's 11 of them in the plaza.
yeah,
And there's 4 of them on our downtown corridor.
yeah,
So you're looking roughly around, this is just a rough estimate, I'm supposed to get an estimate here in the next couple of days, you're looking at about $30,000 to do all of them. To do 11 of them at the plaza, $22,000 for that, and then, and then 4 of them, so total of 30,000.
Is the one without the bag cheaper?
Actually, it's about the same price.
Yeah.
I was surprised, yeah.
Councilmember Walter likes that particular one in some places, just because the people.
you mean without the back?
Yeah, people can face two.
Yeah,
different things.
we were kind of thinking about the plaza, because certain benches, for example, along the walkway. During Friday Night Live, there's people in the grass.
You're facing the exact opposite direction. That's what's going on.
So you
You're right.
kind of, it allows for someone to sit
Yeah.
and face either direction versus they're facing out this way when the band's over.
Right. We're thinking about maybe doing a combination of both, just keeping
Yeah.
the same color and the same style, those two,
Yeah.
something like that. That's just this is something similar, just an example.
Well, like I've said, the plaza's looking so good right now, Friday Night Live,
Yeah,
and
it's
then the
awesome.
addition of 101 North or whatever it's gonna be here. When that kicks in, this place is gonna be alive
Yeah.
come this summer, and we're gonna see a lot of people down here, so.
One nice thing too about these benches too, they come with that graffiti approved paint,
Yeah,
and that helps out. Less than the graffiti.
yeah,
Absolutely, I mean, I noticed some of our benches are being affected by graffiti and pens and carving.
Put a picture I sent you yesterday.
well, and I just wanted to make sure, and that's why I was asking for that count on those blue ones that we've, had over there forever, is those are. I mean, I've seen different towns and stuff, and I believe Healdsburg down on their plaza has the dual cans. I don't think they have the triple ones, but they have the dual cans and they look good. Then they've supplemented them with other ones, the blue ones, that recycle, and I mean, you can get crazy with them. There's cans everywhere and that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? But those things are they're nice, and
Yeah.
you hope people are gonna put recycled cans in trash. It doesn't turn in, because I know it was mentioned that either at the last council, I don't know if Vice Mayor Walter said it or not, but I guess we're not covering our cans for Friday Night Live this year.
Well,
Or are we using the city cans? And in that case, we need more.
that's been a kind of a discussion of its own. In the past, we've covered the cans, because the consideration was that the group that was responsible for the cleanup may not put the replacement bags on properly.
Mhm.
So I guess from my perspective, I always thought it looked unattractive to have a bunch of our decorative cans covered up in bags.
Right,
But it may be worse than that, was people were just sticking their trash on top of it.
Yeah.
And so it was like, well, it's kind of ineffective. And I think with some education, we can encourage the folks that are using the plaza to put the bags on properly. Not to say they still sit and maybe use temporary cans to meet the event needs.
Yeah.
Because we may not be able to meet all the trash needs with just what we have, which is, I think sufficient for most of the time, but I think that was the intent, was to kind of get away from, because they're using a bunch of bags, then it's kind of wasteful.
it is. I just, like I said, the blue ones, I mean, there's certain spots that would come in, and I think we spoke before about, putting them around parks. There's areas in the parks, instead of having big rollaways from Recology or whatever down by the dugouts, you got the beer league, the ponytail league, all that. It's one spot, and they're pretty good at actually putting stuff in recycle and all that, so. Those blue ones, found a couple of those next to the dugout, out of sight, out of mind. It's just a good position for them. And then we don't have to have big rollaways that just get.
Right. I'm wondering if we can identify kind of an exhibit, identify where we could place some of the blue cans along with the, any of the cans that we want to reuse from downtown that we replace with new cans, and where we want to dog park one of these.
That's gonna be the first one.
About their trails too, maybe. Because they, say the Winery Trail or Sunrise Hills, I think they don't know if they have one
Yeah.
dead center. And you always find stuff up there. People are walking the trail going, there it goes. But if they had a can, I mean, like you said, they might put it in. So. Yeah, they're all good cans. This-
Yeah, if there's roughly about 30 of them
Yeah,
out there with lids.
gotcha. All right, well, yeah, let's bring that one to council too.
All right,
And
we'll come up with, we'll develop
Yeah.
a plan, we'll bring this
Plan,
forward.
yeah, definitely.
What do you think, the phase would be to do the plaza first? Probably.
Plaza, the key corridor area.
Yeah. So we're not gonna be able to probably buy everything.
No.
Everybody's it's a brand.
Right.
It's just garbage cans.
That'll be a tough sell, but I mean, phase, if you like said, if you phase it, that'd be the best spot to start dead center of town. People, everybody's seeing progress.
New benches.
And it's less of a hit. You know?
Multiple fiscal years.
Exactly, yeah. That and the chamber,
See, like, I just. This year. Those things are done.
Well, and I've seen on that, speaking of the bench, not to pound them to death, but people will walk by and I don't know how many people I've seen standing there with a perfectly good empty bench and they look at them, and they stand. So it's time, it's time to maybe upgrade a little and have the ability to spray them, so. I know. All right. Some of these, like, okay, number 2, update on downtown sidewalk pavement conditions. I'm not up to date on that at all, so I don't know.
Yeah, so this item was, well, just a little background, why it's a standing item is most all standing items were on previous agendas and are in progress, or we're making progress, or it was agendized for a discussion and there was some direction given, and so rather than it being a new business item, it's under understanding. So on this particular item, a resident who lives in close proximity to downtown brought forward some issues with some of the pavement conditions within kind of the key downtown corridor. Former council member, Public Works Subcommittee Vice Chair Paula, along with a city engineer, conducted a tour or visited the locations that were identified where there were some declining pavement conditions, I guess, maybe a way to phrase it. And I don't know, Vanessa, if you want to kind of offer an update on, I know some of that was, it's really item that is on our list of to-dos by our public works team. Intervening between that time, we had multiple water leaks and other issues that kind of filled up their schedule.
Yeah, we actually we were working with Parks team to get a grinder out here. They were going to do some grinding. We had it slated for this week, but due to the snow, we are short on staff this week. Everyone's kind of emergency things came up, so we had to push it off. But I'm confident in March we will have that grinding out. And then once the parks acquire it for us, then we're going to try to get some time on it and assess a few sidewalks in town. And then after we get that initial grinding done, we'll do another survey of the surrounding area and see what anything else we can do to make mitigating tripping hazards or anything like that.
Now, is that just grinding it down or do you patch it after that?
If there's a large separation after grinding, we patch it down.
Was there anything I know some of them involved a little more maybe extensive
You know, it's kind of situational. There's, you know, one particular spot where there is nothing to grind. It's just kind of sagging and it's kind of a hole, if you will, in the sidewalk. And so that's a quick patch. In some of these spots, the repairs can be tricky due to a lack of room, needing to comply with ADA requirements, accessibility requirements, driveway aprons. You know, things can get pretty complicated. There's one spot in particular where it's just kind of a weird, like, pedestrian ramp at the corner of an intersection. There's a culvert, the daylight's right there. And so we can come in, you know, it's, I think what we're talking about with grinding and patching are temporary fixes. But at some point, budget permitting, it would be nice to go in and do some real improvements in a couple of those locations, but anyways, I think, you know,
Just a patch to it.
making them safe is
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of the immediate low hanging fruit and addressing the accessibility needs of this particular resident and the general public. And then next, you know, the next thing will be to pick off some of these in a little bit more significant repair.
I think I found those the emails that were received. I think Councilmember Paula previously got those and yeah. So,
You're forward.
yeah, okay.
You said there was pictures attached.
Yeah, I didn't get the pictures on that one.
They may not have.
Next item is the Tarman Drive parking zone sign request.
Yeah, so there was
Let's just move down. I mean,
yeah, just move down.
just move. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just tackle this.
Yeah.
Go. I know our city engineer conducted a site visit. This is at the corner of South Cloverdale Boulevard and Tarman Drive, at the north east corner where Los Pinos Market was. There was a request for some I think it was 20-minute parking, or maybe it may have been 15-minute parking. And that striping had been installed by our public works department. And I think this was addressed. They were asking about a sign in addition to the color striping, and that's just, I'm not sure of the status, if a sign was warranted in that location, or whether the existing curb painting was sufficient to address the time requirements.
And so I think the curb painting is more than adequate. You know, it can be enforced. You know, there's nothing wrong with the enforcement out there. And so I think at last check-in for the public works subcommittee, we reached out to the chief and talked about, okay, now it's time to enforce this red, green, and yellow curb. There's a red curb there for the hydrant. And I can't remember, one curb color for the loading zone and the other curb for 20-minute, intended to be for market use. And I believe the owner or one of the workers at the market says that there's kind of these ongoing complaints about people parking overnight. And so now it's just a matter of being able to enforce. I don't think a sign is warranted on top of the curb markings. I think the curb markings are adequate. There was a funny story follow-up from the chief is one of his officers saw somebody parked out there for an extended length of time, went in to investigate, and it turned out to be the owner of the market. And so did
I guess every right to be there. Huh? Yeah, I on that one, yeah. I mean, I agree. Curb marking. We start putting signs up where everybody wants a sign. Next, you know, we got nothing but signs going up down the boulevard. Nobody knows what to do, and then enforcement's a train wreck. So. Yeah.
And it's just another item to maintain. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it's potentially something for, you know, somebody to knock over or to crack the sidewalk, or it's just another ongoing maintenance issue.
Yeah, and there's challenges in that area because there's a separated landscape strip. So if you put a sign, it starts to affect the accessibility of the path. Since the striping was refreshed, we haven't heard back from the property owner or the adjoining business owner. So I think we're good to go.
Now, is that the one right across from Alexander Valley Health?
Yeah.
So you probably have an issue with whoever's trying to get into Alexander Valley Health thinks that's a parking spot. Okay.
And there are, if memory serves, you know, city code provides that you can only designate so much as loading zone or temporary parking. And some of it has to just remain as regular street parking. And so, to the best of my knowledge, we're complying with that. There are at least 2 spots available for regular street parking. And there's a segment there for temporary parking and a loading zone. And then we've got the hydrant, red curve.
I put that one to bed.
Okay.
I like the, you know, and if need be, come down and maybe update the paint every now and then it's, if you're in compliance. Like I said, we start getting into signs and we got more signs, we know what to do with.
We'll go ahead and remove that.
You know,
And then I think the next thing would be to follow up with the requesting party. The
Mhm.
person who requested the sign, so I will take a hold of that.
Okay, so, Jared, okay, it's okay with you, let's move forward.
Yep.
Item 4, the red light and paint stop head advisory. This is, the intersection of North Street at North Cloverdale Boulevard. We have a crosswalk in that location. We had installed a stop sign where there wasn't one previously, now going on about 3 years ago. And the desire is to make that there seems to be continued stop sign occurring in that area. And what we've done, we did some preliminary research on a fix to bring more visibility to the stop sign, which involves I don't know if there's a technical name for it, but it's kind of a red light that sits on top of the stop sign, because in the area of parking along the boulevard, to help draw attention to the stop sign. And I think we had identified a preferred product that would work. The original request was to actually hang a red light on guide wires. And we didn't think that was the best solution for that, to bring visibility to that stop sign. And instead, this option that meets with, it's called METCD approved product. And it's just a matter of ordering it and then getting our crews to install it. And so that's basically with restriking.
Up there, was that the gas station? Yeah.
oh, gotcha, okay. I was way down there south. Okay, gotcha. Okay, makes sense now.
It's a slow process.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
The solar ones.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Power,
Yeah, the solar.
red light.
One on each side.
You go through them. Oh, catching on here.
So I think for at this point, it's just a matter of ordering the beacon. I know Vanessa, we kind of identified a preferred beacon. There's some different options there. So it's just a matter of moving forward with the purchase order, coordinating with the team on some restriking. I'll get that to you. Yeah.
Okay.
Are we gonna be able to install that, you think?
Yeah, I think so. But well, I'll have Public Works Director take a look at it. If we need help, I think it's something we can do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I bet, in the last, it would either be the December Public Works Subcommittee meeting or November, but, one of those had to close.
Okay.
And then the minutes would have our identified alternative.
All right, so moving forward, like you said, moving forward with looking at, and the city personnel doing that,
Yes.
perfect.
Yep.
Excellent.
Okay, the next item. Just a brief update, we were requested to prepare the preliminary engineering estimates for pedestrian and bike safety improvements along Ossipee Road between Citrus Fair Drive and First Street. Kind of what was pushing the desire to move this forward was approval of the Alexander Valley Apartments on Osseo, 75-unit affordable housing project, and the need to ensure that the city is prepared for a future project with appropriate pedestrian improvements. But likewise, we have recently completed a complete street safety assessment, or I should say, it was completed on our behalf by a team of traffic safety professionals, and kind of in line with what they would recommend to address traffic safety, pedestrian movement, bicycling along that corridor. So our city engineer prepared preliminary cost estimates. We brought that forward. The idea being this could be used as a tool to help have a conversation with our state representatives about potential state funding for some of this work. So really not much to add. I think we did some pretty nice work. Our city engineer put together a memo, cost estimates, and it was reviewed by the subcommittee. It's really, I think it helps kind of inform what some of the improvements are, what the cost of doing all the work is, and it was pretty complete, but wasn't comprehensive, and then it didn't include everything, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done for the infrastructure in terms of drainage, electrical work to support new signals, etc. So that's just an update. This was in a previous packet. We can keep it here, just as kind of a placeholder and use it. That's really your direction, Chair. If there's any more information you want on this, we're happy to, give you an update.
No, I kind of looked it over and saw the previous ones too, and saw all the costs and all that stuff too. Just, yeah, I would definitely keep it there.
On March 22nd council meeting, we're gonna have that assessment of the roads that we had done presented to the council, so you can see all the suggestions.
Perfect.
All right, we'll move forward. So we'll remove this one, Chair, if you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Item 6, this is, we've been requested to look at some alternatives for continuing the pathway adjacent to the Cherry Creek Village Affordable Housing Project. Currently, the sidewalk ends at the southern side of the existing creek, and there's a lot of impediments there. There's a fire hydrant. There's a very significant valley oak tree, and guardrail, and then the landing would be on what we think might be private property on the north side. So we've been talking to a traffic safety engineer about a proposal to address how to connect the pathway on the north side to the south side, or south to the north, without having to do a full-on creek crossing and involve private property. So we're still in that process of getting the proposal. So we'll be bringing that back once we've got that secured. See, item 7, just moving down the line here. We again were successful in obtaining the $3.2 million grant from DWR for drop leaf projects. Key to that was our AMI meter project, where Public Works Director and city manager or engineering technician are all working. We have bi-weekly meetings on moving that project forward. Also, our city engineering team at West Yost is actually prepared to submit our second quarterly report. We've gotten reimbursement for the first phase, so we're making progress. We next steps include getting a proposal for one of our key projects, which was updating our SCADA system for our water distribution system. So we're working with a kind of a sole source contract, and the name ArcSign who's done most of our SCADA work, to get a proposal to do the work that's called for under a grant, and again help our water operators more efficiently manage the system, get more tools to control valves and things like that. So That's in the works. And the other key component was our well replacement and well rehab project. Is it 13 and 14?
7 and 8.
Or 7 and 8. We're working with West Coast on proposals for both of those projects. So we're making good progress. I think we'll be rolling out the AMI project over the next 8 months to 8 to maybe 16 months.
Now, this may, I got a question on, and for the water stuff, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but is with that grant or whatever we got, does that involve we were talking, I know a month ago about the replacement of some tanks. Is that the same project or upgrading some tanks? Is that the same money pool or?
It's separate funding.
Oh, is it?
So back to the meter project real
Mhm.
quick. The meter project is technically funded by primarily three funding sources. The DWR grant, when we applied for the grant, we applied for funding to do at the time about half the meters.
Gotcha.
Of course, since the time we applied and now the costs of doing the work went up. So we figure, it pays about 40% of the meter work. Council approved the PG&E turnkey program and associated financing plans. So we've done a lease revenue lease revenue loan that will be paid back by water enterprise revenue. And then the third source of funding was the council set aside a little over $1 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds. They're really right now they're parked in our general fund that will be transferred into the water enterprise or just will help pay for this project work as it proceeds. So that's about $1 million, which represents I think around 25% of the cost approximately. So kind of three funding sources for the water meter project. But to your question, we are looking at replacing the reservoir at Cherry Creek. It's our oldest tank. I think it's from the 60s, if my time frame serves me right. And we did a feasibility study, kind of one of the determination or one of the evaluation that we undertook was, do we replace this with a much larger tank, one large tank, 500,000 gallons or 400,000 gallons, or two smaller tanks at maybe 200,000 gallons each? We have opted, we believe that a good approach is to replace the existing tank with two new tanks and to do it in a stepwise fashion. Install one new tank, which we could then enable us to take the other tank offline.
Isolate one and do maintenance.
And then put the new tank in, put a second new tank in later, hopefully sooner rather than later, but the idea being you have two tanks, so it facilitates maintenance. You could take one offline without affecting, fire flows, water pressure, and all the things that are important to water operations. So that's where we're at.
Okay.
In order to validate that effort, council approved contracting with West Yost to do the hydraulic evaluation, because that tank serves zone 1, really kind of our largest zone in terms of customers. Just to make sure we vet any issues with fire flows, operational issues, and kind of validate this scenario where we propose two tanks. Hopefully it does, because I think from our team, including our senior water operator, really likes the idea of a two tank solution. And so that's what we're calling it, the two tank solution. But that is being funded by rate revenue. So, and I did just touch on this because we get asked often, it's like, Well, why'd you raise rates? Your fund looks good. Well, because it's a pay-as-you-go strategy, which means we're not financing it, unlike the water meters, which we're financing part of it. But we gotta save up enough.
Yeah.
And the checking account to be able to pay for the project when we carry it out.
Gotcha.
And, that's what's critical is our fund balance, we're gonna see it, hopefully, what we're gonna see is it's gonna go up. And the finance admin and police subcommittee, we're gonna have reports on that. So we should hopefully be seeing that balance go up. But when we do that project, there's gonna be some big expenditures. These are, 6-figure items. So we'll see. When it comes to design, construction, bidding, project management, all that, we'll have some big expenditures. But this is a critical project for us. I'll say that.
That answers it. Thank you.
That kind of gets back to you as well. Item 8, I'll turn it over to Vanessa. Vanessa's been working, so we had quite a bit of discussion over several subcommittee meetings about our street striping plan. And ultimately, we decided on kind of a final approach, which entails coming up with a striping plan for really the Boulevard and Foothill Drive, kind of a complete striping plan, which may or may not contain some phase elements to it, recognizing we may not be able to afford doing all of it at once. With templates, because this is one we believe we'll have to do formal bidding on. But even if we don't, having the kind of the constructed templates so that we make sure we're getting all the fair quotes that we need for performing the work. So Vanessa, you want to update on progress?
Yeah, I think we're moving along. There's the design consultant is W-Trans. They're kind of working out some issues with our old striping.
Yeah.
Whether it's in good shape or respectable shape. You've got a lot of the box dots, the little raised markers. You've got the raised reflective markers. Well, those are not standard anymore. And my understanding is there's no longer a standard that is just the dots. Now there's some combination of raised markers or dots and stripes. And there's also no more 4-inch stripes. Now there's 6-inch stripes. Anyways, working through all that stuff. They've been a little bit delayed on field work because of the weather and the snow, but we are anticipating a preliminary plan set mid-March. March 15th is the date that she gave me. And so hopefully by the next subcommittee meeting, we'll sit down with a set of plans and see comment from you guys. Hopefully put that project out to bid this summer, at least some portion of it, all else fails, but that's the hope.
Right.
Phases.
Right, well.
That's what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Phases.
Yeah, I mean, we're, as engineers, everyone in the industry, the costs are just like, good grief, I don't even want to do an estimate these days, the costs are just changing tremendously. Anyway, so sooner the better, I think, but we'll try to capture as much as we can.
We recognize the urgency on this, but we're hoping we'll get the plan, and then it'll be first subcommittee council weighing in on what if we need to phase it, which I think we'll probably need to based on budget. What do we tackle first? Is it key parts of downtown, the Boulevard? Is it Foothill or
Was Treadway included? I feel like
Yeah,
Treadway
Treadway.
was also included, right?
Perfect.
Okay, item 9, sustainable groundwater management act, Potter Valley relicensing project. This is really a placeholder. We could kind of just for us to keep an eye on what's going on with the Potter Valley project. There really hasn't been much movement in that whole effort. With that said, there was an update. Yesterday was what they call the Water Day at the Board of Supervisors. I will post the link to the video in the weekly newsletter this week for anybody who wants to spend several hours of their good time watching that update. But they touched on a lot of issues around what's happening with the Potter Valley project, and you know, it could be valuable just as background for the community, but there really hasn't been much. Much has happened in the way of that project, so it's just, we know it's looming, it's out there,
Do you know what it is?
No, and I was just getting ready to say, I apologize, but I'm not up to speed on the Potter Valley project.
Gotcha. So what the Potter Valley project is a set of dams and diversions on the Eel River, primarily located in Mendocino County. Portions of I think are in Lake County, Lake Pillsbury,
Isn't it?
that there's a diversion canal that brings diverts that water into Lake Mendocino. So it's a very important and integral supply source of water that keeps the levels in Lake Mendocino up above what they would be if it were not for this diversion. Ultimately, there's this interest in getting rid of the dams, which would eliminate the ability to divert that water, and it could have, you know, pretty significant impacts on our water supply. Currently, there's a hydroelectric facility there that was managed by PG&E under a FERC license. PG&E has said they all but want to abandon that, so that's
Really?
right. And the parts to replace the hydroelectric facilities are very expensive. The licensing process with FERC is a multi-year, six-figure effort, and so they're kind of saying, we don't want to do this anymore. There's not enough money in the electricity that's generated hydroelectric to pay for this maintenance of this whole facility. But really now, with the commoditization of water, the values in the water. And so there's all this discussion going on about how do we address this interest in addressing, you know, there's tribal interests, there's water interests in Mendocino County who want to see the water not diverted to Sonoma County. You know, keep it in stream and remove the dams and all that. So how do we balance all those interests? And that's this conversation that had been led up by Congressman Huffman in trying to negotiate a deal with all the parties. And I think kind of where we see it going is that ultimately there's going to be a group put together that's going to have to buy the water. That's what we think. And you know, who the buyers are and the benefits and all that, that's all going to have to be worked out, and that's where something might come to council. You know, you'll have to have a say in the governance. What's the governance look like? Who makes those decisions? If it's a regional JPA, what does that look like? What are all our contributions? How's it managed from a resource perspective? You know, it gets really complicated very fast. So it's like the wheels of government, it's moving very slow, but there's some potentially really significant impacts out there. And decisions that are being made, you know, on an annual basis where it does affect our water supply. So, you know, we have our own water rights, and in some ways we're kind of disconnected from the reservoir in some regards, because that's really considered Sonoma water. But it's all part of the system, and we rely on that flow to support our wells. And so, you know, where you draw the line and say, this is ours and this is yours, that's all subject to negotiation.
I'm gonna pretend that I know everything they just said, but I know.
Yeah.
But I'll look, well, I mean, I'll look in and get a little, you know, but it sounds like a huge deal. I mean,
like this.
Exactly.
More to go that way.
Yeah, there's tremendous amount involved. Our council at one point wrote a letter of support for a group called the Mendocino Inland Water and Power Company, who was established to just ensure that Potter Valley could continue to get water from the project, because they're the primary initial.
Yeah, a lot more.
And how much does it supply Cloverdale? I mean, like, what's the percentage?
So there is really no set percentage. though they've done a lot of analysis to show what the impact is on Lake Mendocino, if we don't get, like, if we got zero water, what impact it looks like. But that's where, you know, what does that water in the reservoir do for our water supply? Our water supply isn't directly reservoir water, it's groundwater under the influence of surface water, so we haven't done some study that kind of says what's the mix of water from these different sources and how does it meet our, how do you factor into.
They always want our restrictions based on what Lake Mendocino is.
Yeah.
So there's some connection there.
Yeah,
Liquid
there's
gold.
real world, and then, I mean, there's the physical world, and then there's the regulatory world, and those two collide.
And then it's a mess. Yeah, I know. Okay.
Yeah, I think if I'm remembering right, the data, lots of data and, whether we're in drought year or not, is, whether the parties are all, interested or not. But I believe that they're looking at without that water, in 8 out of 10 years, there's not enough water to serve all the water rights on the Russian River. And so, again, it could be major. And so I think there is an interest in keeping that diversion open. But who's gonna do it? When PG&E backs out, who's doing it? All of us, potentially. And so that's where it gets super messy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you have a group of homeowners or property owners up at Lake Pillsbury. That have interest in a reservoir being maintained. So some of those folks have made their way here saying, hey, support us, keep our dam so that we can continue to have this lake. We think it's valuable. So there's a lot of different interests in the talk that are talking about this.
Hey, that's what experience felt like, this isn't a quick fix right here.
So, yeah, from time to time, you'll get a letter from a resident, someone who owns property up there saying Cloverdale, they want us to get involved and. It's just not right yet for us,
Just for
to take a policy position. All right. You okay with that update, Chair?
Yeah.
Well, moving forward, so Ferber Park Playground renovation. We know Ferber Park Playground is one of our most oldest playgrounds in the city. Great, it's in really good condition, but I know from our parks superintendent, it's getting harder and harder to get the parts to continue to maintain our existing playground equipment, and then we have our swing structure that is getting pretty dated. So we at a previous committee, we brought forward some concepts for redesign of the existing playground, or even replacing the existing swing set with this kind of some newly updated equipment. There was interest about, could we possibly look at another pickleball court in that location? And I think our park superintendent looked at that and determined that it's not a good site for a second pickleball court. This is one what we'd like to do is kind of revisit this, bring this back with a presentation from our playground consultant with all these different concepts, which there's some really cool, awesome playground stuff out there. And kind of hone in on what would be an appropriate project. Do we want to? There's all kinds of, we could completely replace everything with the budget, or we could add some amenities, or we could kind of tackle replacing just the swing set with some new kind of different stuff that's more modern. So there's a number of alternatives.
Now, when you do playgrounds, like, and I know. We used to have to do a lot of inspections on things. Do we have to inspect our playgrounds?
We do every year.
We do? Okay.
Yeah. So we have to, I think.
'Cause I know if you add to it, it might redo the inspection timeline, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you added new stuff, now that generates a new inspection, and before you know, you have 3 or 4 of these things going on a year, you know what I mean?
So we currently have a high frequency form inspection, which we myself and Miguel can go out and inspect playgrounds on a weekly basis.
Mhm.
We have a log, we have a we have a physical log of all the inspections.
Yeah.
And this goes on, from swing sets to, even just breaking leaves around the playground. But like David mentioned, this playground specifically at River Park is getting difficult to replace parts. It's roughly about almost 30 years old. I think it's 25 years old, and we've been doing everything possible throughout the years to replace parts as they break. And so I spoke to Shanna, a client supervisor, at for Miracle Playground, and she sent us a few options. And she said that she would be willing to attend one of the public works subcommittee meetings to, you guys get a little better idea from her perspective.
Yeah, I think that's ideal would be, last time we just had her PowerPoint, we didn't actually have her present to walk us through all the different options and, could we, it's almost like pick what you want,
Yeah.
kind of match and play, and I there's, you can get lost in how many different things.
I can't believe how expensive playgrounds are.
Yeah.
See how much money we have left too.
The what?
We gotta see how much money we have left for.
Yeah.
We're buying a lot of stuff.
For example, like those little swing, spring-loaded little horses, these meadows, they're $5,000. The spiral slide that we just replaced not long ago, replaced the spiral slide at River Park. That was $9,000, and it's a little tiny little man.
It's all plastic.
It's all plastic. Yeah, swing set. It's a regular swing set.
116-degree weather.
Yeah. It's one belt swing with a chain. You're looking at probably $500 to $600. That's very expensive. All the liability legals.
Well, the liability things, so we make sure we're good, we put them in there inspected. So Cloverdale didn't clear it. Somebody comes and says, hey, there's an old playground, they fall and break an arm, next thing you know, we're buying 20 playgrounds, It's,
So one of the things we talked about, which I think is kind of cool, is getting rid of the horseshoes and doing the permanent bocce, well, what do they call it? Carnival.
Yeah.
Carnival exhaust.
yeah,
They should have quote or.
Kind of expensive.
we gotta have some retorts on the pickleball or something, you know what I'm saying? So maybe we'll go do that. Challenges, it's a great spot.
I don't think a lot of people play horseshoes anymore.
No.
Not late.
Yeah, cornhole and bocce, those are the ones, Yeah.
So, with your support, Chair, we'll bring these back and we'll have a presentation.
Yeah.
We'll revisit.
Absolutely.
And then, next item was basketball courts. I think unfortunately we got a little delay with the rain, and I think they were ready to pave.
Taking forever.
Hector, you want to
Sure.
give an update?
Yeah, so the basketball construction project is still underway. You hit it on the spot there. We have some delays because of the rain. It would have been probably completed by now if we wouldn't have experienced this storm and the previous storm. We met with Regi this morning, Zach Regi on site. And we're hoping to get the project going again tomorrow morning. With the plan of pouring the perimeter foundation all the way around the basketball courts on Friday. So the project is gonna keep going from tomorrow, Thursday and Friday, and it's just depending on weather. Because it looks like we're gonna get some more rain next week. We might have to slow down again, which is
They can't do asphalt in the rain, can they? Or
No,
that's a
there's
compaction.
ideal minimum temperatures. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yes,
It won't
warmer.
It should be warmer.
Crack. So, but the foundation, the concrete foundation, perimeter 10-inch foundation all the way around. The basketball court that holds the post and the court together.
Is that thing fenced?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
Right.
Is it the poles were in? Was
The poles are, yeah, so the foundation holds the poles and it also keeps the asphalt from chipping and just protects it.
It's deluxe. It's a nice.
Oh, I know. I was like,
Has cords.
when I heard basketball courts, I thought, oh, they're just grinding and redoing the ones that are there, and then I drove over there and I was like, damn, these are full size.
Yeah, two.
That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
painted with asphalt.
Yeah.
We did get 200,000 basically a low grant from the state.
Nice.
So paid for some of it.
So I guess right now, it just depends on weather. Looks like we're gonna get some rain next week, so. I'll keep you guys
What's the
posted.
temperature? So even if it's not raining, they may not be able to.
The warmer the better. I mean, hot days are ideal for pavement, but really, the batch plant I mean, they may not even make asphalt until the weather is right. Anyway, Zach Regi in general, has been able to, come forward with pavement.
Yeah.
With product, even in winter conditions, so they, they're the local guys, they know the routine, they know the local suppliers and. But we could, it could be something where, not only is it a weather delay for construction, it's also, potentially to get the material.
Right. So basically pour the perimeter, pour the asphalt, put up the fencing. And then now what the stands aren't up yet, right?
That's no, they're not up yet, and then, yeah, and then there's basketball hoops. Then,
And
so,
then striping.
then striking, the type of striking we're gonna implement here is a type of, kind of like you see on the pickleball court. It's that rubberized stuff. And one of the intent was just, one, took a few things, one of them is with the kids on the curb. And it'll, in the long run, the asphalt will last longer, cracking and all that, so that's one of the benefits from that.
You said asphalt, it said something funny.
No, it's gotta be my accent, that's picking up my accent.
Well, it sounds like by
Hurry up and wait on that one.
mid-spring, we should have the basketball courts ready to go.
Can't wait, and then once we get that going, we're planning on, hopefully we can create some parks and recreation activities out there for the kids, do some 3-on-3 tournaments, maybe get some revenue for the parks department.
Well, next item was just potential park enhancements. It kind of goes in line with the, maybe we combine these quotes together with the playground renovation.
Yeah.
We talked about, the idea of the bag toss at, Burger Park and likewise at City Park. But as you can see here, I think to your comment, Chair, bocce courts. We really just want to get council, well, first, the recommendation of the subcommittee, what improvements where do we want to target, additional enhancements or amenities, and, we'll develop a plan and bring it forward.
Absolutely.
Good stuff going on.
Yeah, there is.
Our projects and parks.
Yeah. Anything else? Oh,
No, that's
okay.
perfect. That's a great idea.
The 6 acres mutual water company pre-annexation process, and there's really two that are ongoing. 6 acres as well as South Cloverdale. 6 acres is the head of South Cloverdale. There we meet pretty regularly with a whole group of folks today. There was a call, there was 20 people on the Zoom call. Representing the city is most of the folks here at the table except for Hector. And I know Bobby will get you plugged in at some point here. Talking about annexing the 6 acres, about what is it, 23 residents, providing extending sewer and water. So that is
It's in south, where?
Like Lyle Lane,
which is
Lyle Lane and South Lane,
Crossfire is.
yeah.
Crossfire.
Oh, okay.
So, like city limits, city limits kind of key out right there.
Yep.
Where the, east of the boulevard is not in the city. In this little area, it's kind of messy, right?
yeah. So there was a change in state law that gave the authority to the state to basically what they call forced consolidation. Consolidation in their mind means we serve them with water, which only happens if you annex, really. So it's kind of like forced annexation. It's been in the works for about 7 years now. We're at the point where there's actually quite a bit of preliminary engineering work done to extend both water and wastewater facilities into this area so that they'll have city water and city wastewater.
I have a well on the other side of our one that's just shallow, terrible, doesn't meet the state standards. So the state identified that and said, you need to get into cities and get city water. And to the state's credit, they're paying for the engineering, the hookups, pipes, I mean, almost all of it.
Yeah, we'll, it develops, obviously, the cost estimates get updated, the state will pay up to $60,000 per connection for both water and wastewater. We'll see if they make it in that budget or not. This has been a pretty long, contentious effort, because to date, we spend a lot of time in these meetings. We don't get paid for it. It's something they say, well, at the end, you get reimbursed for your time. So it's been a kind of challenging,
Everyone keep track of your time.
and they're very demanding for data and information. I know today there was a call, there was they wanted a lot of information from us. For instance, they want hydrant flow data, which I
High water mark for that creek. Where's that?
yeah, so that's when in your role as council member, well, we should have to spend a little time. We'll go out there, take a look.
Is that the one that has the southern part of IROC property?
That's South Cloverdale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mutual Water Company. That one is in process. They're still doing the preliminary engineering. That one's a little more convoluted because there are properties that are in the city that get their water from South Florida, but they're in the city. And then there's a whole set of properties that it's much more challenging to bring wastewater and water delivery services to, because I don't know how we haven't seen the preliminary engineering yet, so we'll see. How
We will be before council asking to approve certain aspects of this. So we can.
right. There's kind of this expectation on the state's part that we're going to do that, but it comes with legal constraints and operational constraints. And challenges, some of the legal constraints relate to, physical boundaries and where our infrastructure can go and how do we address that? We can't use water enterprise or wastewater enterprise revenue for any of this work. And we want to make sure that if we're going to inherit it, it meets our standards. And so, often with these kinds of projects, we're asked to accept and agree to things that we may not normally agree in an effort to move this effort forward. So it's just challenging.
Yeah. Sounds like water's the theme, huh? That's the driver of a lot of stuff. These.
Offline on this, it's pretty complicated.
Yeah, we can even have you sit in on a meeting with us. Just to hear the dialogue. Let's see, moving forward, the next project 14, this is really an update on the county process. So the county, they've had a long-standing CIP project to install a pedestrian bridge on the Crocker Bridge. Right as of now, there's very little room for pedestrians to cross that bridge safely. So they want to hang a pedestrian crossing on the north side of the bridge. And I think what I was told by the Public Works Director is that they're going to be putting that out to bid this summer. So that they're at about the 90+ plan stage. So they're going to be getting ready to go out to bid on this. We were involved, I think it was the 30%.
I can't remember.
40%.
They gave us the opportunity to comment on a preliminary plan set. So we did have a couple of things, some asks that went in, and they were able to accommodate a couple and not so much others. That all sounds good. It's going to be a great project when it goes in.
Yeah, the director said that they would love to finish it in 2023. But they're not sure if it's feasible because they're timing the project with the installation of the ASTI crossing. And so they're for sure going to be starting the abutments soon. And hoping to wrap it up in 2023, but it may be a 2-year project depending on road work.
Yeah, for us, what's critical is how does it tie into the entrance to River Park in a way that doesn't negatively impact our operations, obviously for park access, but also water treatment plant. And then just once they land on into the city, how are those pedestrians, those bicyclists gonna move through? So that's where kind of this stuff we're doing on Oski Road becomes important, because all of it's kind of linked, and how are bicyclists, pedestrians are gonna move in that area. So there's probably some concurrent responsibilities that will fall on us. I know we talked about that during the plan review, and it's kind of, well, our limit of scope ends here, so those will be things we'll have to identify and work on. But overall, I think everybody agrees this is a much needed project.
It's amazing what's happening. Talking all for how long, 10 years?
The next one, again, just standing item, it's really just a tracker. There's considerable grant funding available through the CPUC for extension of broadband internet into underserved areas that I heard it from our community that there was real interest here, and they hear about these grant monies going out. They say, why can't I get my internet cheaper? Well, the first phase of a lot of this funding was to really target improving the infrastructure to areas which currently do not have service. So that the city was pretty well served. Maybe we don't have the best service, but it's available here. So through talking to the county, who is leading up the effort, because it's really our unincorporated area that doesn't, we have residents who just literally do not have access to internet services unless they now they're Starlink, but and satellite services, but some just did not have service. So that was kind of phase one. So we're kind of just keeping our eye on this to see when it gets to phase two, if there's opportunities for us to apply for funding to improve or enhance internet service for our community, and whether we can do add internet access at parks or downtown. We'll see what opportunities there are. And it's really kind of targeted towards lower income communities, communities with certain designations, which parts of our city are designated. So we're just keeping our eye out. So that's really just an update. It's more, again, that's why it says standing item. It's just keep our eye on it and keep tracking it and see what opportunities there are.
All right, anybody got any final comments on any of those, or got something, or want to say something?
No.
All right, then we're moving into G, future agenda items. How about future agenda items for the subcommittee? I have one, but I mean, the one I was thinking of, and it's just, and it's been mentioned to me a few times, and Derek, maybe, I don't know, it might be a phase thing again, is the painting of the curbs red in front of the fire hydrants. I've been asked numerous times, how come at one time they were painted and now they're not painted, and what's the deal? I know it's an upkeep, and I know it's something like that, but initially painting them, and maybe neighborhood wise or up in this section of town. I'm not saying do it quick. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying it's been mentioned to me. Can this be something that can get done? And also goes along with part of kind of like the urban beautification of, hey, you drive up into the neighborhood where we're being like, wow, look at this place looks squared away, yada yada. So kind of going that route. So that's one of the future things I want.
Painting and curb painting.
Yeah. Or even something like maybe, I don't know how you would approve it or go along with it, or if we approach the city, but neighborhoods, they've even said, Ron Pavelka, he's like, hey, we could get together and come up with some citizens that want to come out and be like, hey, this is my neighborhood, I'll do it, whatever. So that type of stuff,
Just put one comment there on that. There, just Javier has been keeping the log and a list of painted hydrant. He's been painting hydrants.
Yeah.
So he's got a list of that, and I know he was painting red curves too, so I want to check in with him. He was doing it in quadrants.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, so he's started.
Well, under future agenda,
exercising.
we'll bring it back.
Yeah,
We'll
okay.
get your report.
Sounds good, perfect.
So where we're at, and then maybe with a little plan is, hey, how many can we do and get done?
Perfect. No other future stuff? All right, well, meeting adjourned at
3:04.
do it, 3:04. About that. Yeah.